Moo and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pink Tron. I am Brent Robinson, and with me today is Steffichin. Steph, what are you drinking?
Well, just past midnight here, and I'm having a bit of Fanta Orange this time to end my day, night, whatever times are confusing.
Time zones are confusing. Always, that's always the best part of arranging to record the Pink Tron. We've also got Craig Martin. Craig, what are you drinking, and what time zone are you in today?
So I'm in the Atlantic time zone, and there's probably nobody else there. Um, so I'm starting with a Moosehead Radler, and then going back to the Holy Whale, Holy Bully well with the Gutterball Golden. I don't know what it is.
Is it beer?
Yeah, it does appear to be beer. It also appears to have been labeled with a P touch.
Oh, oh. That's very Maritimes. Perfect. All right. We also got Steve Pritchard. Steve, what are you drinking?
I'm on the hot chocolate at the time, so we are nearing tomorrow in time zones here.
Very good. And we also have John Keenan. John, what mushroom infused beverage are you
Mushroom
drinking?
infused. I went for since it's an audio podcast, I went for the prettiest can in the fridge. It's Odyssey Dragon Fruit Lemonade Mushroom Sparkling Beverage. Cordyceps and Lion's Mane.
That one's tasty.
Yeah. I like the lemonade one. The blackberry one I had I don't know, a while back, and had a weird flavor to it.
This is my new Q4 mission is to find an Odyssey beverage to try it out.
Yeah, maybe you can get them along with those play controllers now.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that as we go along. But we also have Sean Fogenberg. Sean, what are you drinking?
I had a long work day, even though it's only 3 p.m. here, and have decided to get on the cocktails, and or as they say in like Game of Thrones, I'm in my cups. So I've got a Paloma with Orete tequila. So Paloma is tequila, grapefruit juice, lime, grapefruit soda, squirt, and some Tajín, a like spicy lime powder to go on top. And cheers.
Looks very tasty. And I have, same as last week, I have Coors Banquet because apparently I bought beer one time in the last 6 months. That's all I've got now. So that's what I've got, Coors Banquet, and it's very tasty and cold. And you know what else is a very, very cold place? Maybe not this time of year, but soon, is Scotland. And in Scotland, we're going to be racing City in the Square on HSRL this week. And it's it's traditional sort of ZRL type racing with FTS segments, but no,
not quite.
But no finish.
Yeah, there's no GC effectively. It's all about your time through the segments, which is a bit more like the Climbers Gambit, but with the draft turned on.
It's draft on. Okay, that's a good clarification. And is it total time across all three? Did I get that right?
Yeah, total time across all three segments, with the points awarded for the fastest time, 53-1 for the top 50 places, the first two segments, and then I think that's triple points on the third segment, so 150, 147, etc.
Wait.
50.
So
it's points or
segments.
Time? Yeah, so it's FTS points.
It's points based on your time.
Right, but points for each of the segments, not for total time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which this really does lead to some interesting strategy talk, right?
Oh, God, Chris and I spent about 10 minutes. So Chris and I did race one. We spent about 10 minutes going back and forth. And I think I did the right thing because I think I wasn't going to hold the group in the draft. And I started on the gravel bike because the lead-in is about a K and a lot of it is downhill. So you don't have to work that hard to stay in the group. And then you immediately hit a gravel climb, which you are quicker up on the gravel bike. I've got the Zwift Plays. I can stop quite quickly at the top of the climb. I remembered to turn the braking sensitivity back on because I've had that turned off. So I went gravel bike, switched to Tron, switched back to gravel bike for my. So 2 bike swaps is amazing. I've never been happier Zwifting. But Chris went Tron through to Tron to start because he could know the group at the start, stayed on the Tron for the second climb, and then switched out to the gravel bike for the third climb, which is the triple points segment.
And it looks like he did the first climb faster, the first climb on the Tron faster than he did it on the gravel bike. I'm assuming quite a lot more power as well, but
yeah, there's a group, more of a group at that point as
Yeah.
well. So I got dropped fairly close to the top, but those guys just a little sort of corkscrew you go round. That's where I lost them, and they sort of powered up to the line. But yeah, fairly grouped.
so
Do we think without plays you'd be able to stop at the top and swap?
yes, I mean you just tap A and it stops you. It does basically the same
Not if you get onto the
thing.
downhill.
That's I think even if you are on a downhill and you hit the pairing button, it is like hitting the brakes.
I think it's
So-
just power off.
I don't think that's true. I think that when you hit pairing, it hits the brakes.
So I no,
I could be wrong.
So I found this in the climate. I don't know whether it's because I didn't have the Zwift Plays enabled. I don't know whether it's an Apple TV thing. So I had this in the Climbers Gambit where I wanted to change bike and I couldn't stop because I didn't have the brakes enabled. So hit the pairing
Okay.
screen and then got round the roundabout before I could change bike.
Got
So
it.
It waits for you to be 0 watts and stopped. It always used to be that as soon as you hit the pairing screen, it stopped the bike, wasn't it? So
I wonder if that's true if you don't. Well, I guess you didn't have your play
no.
paired. Yeah. Interesting. So that may be a change that they've made.
Because I
So
very
I
much
think
feel like
to answer the question, I think it is possible to stop at the top of the gravel side of the climb because you still go uphill a bit, so you can just come off the power and roll to a stop quite quickly. I think going the other way, you hit the descent pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
So Steve, I think we did this in Climbers Gambit, right? And that was one where I did stop at the top and switch after going up the roadside.
Maybe it's the other way around then. I think
No, I think I did both because it was like I think I did on both because it was Climbers Gambit and it didn't matter and it was just like gravel up the gravel side and TT bike up the other side. But yeah.
So I did
It is
notice the
doable.
points are a little different there. It says 50 points for the first climb up the north side, 100 points up the south side, and then 150 up the south side.
Okay.
Or up the north side for the third time.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, like, yeah, that seems like bike choice really is driven by can you hold the group?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this is where Chris and I got to, is that I didn't think I could hold the group on a Tron. I thought I might hold the group on the gravel bike.
Right.
And then
you attacked the
I'm gonna
group
get
off the
dropped.
front.
Yeah, I got a bit carried away. I mainly got cross that Chris and other people were trying to tailgun the segment, so I thought, screw these guys, I'm going off the front and making it hard for you.
So there were only 9 in Zwift Power for you. Were there more in the race?
Yeah, I think we had about
Only a couple.
yeah.
So it does. I mean, that it looks like there were probably. This is a thing that matters because the size of the group is going to be relatively small if there are not a lot of riders. So the relative benefit that you get going up the south side is a lot lower if you don't actually have a couple of people that you're following. I was just looking at the race 2, which is in an hour and a half. And currently for the C's, there are 2 riders signed up. In that scenario, I would hop on a gravel bike to start and to gravel, TT, gravel. If it's more like what we end up with sometimes in HSRL, where we've got 20 in the race, maybe there's the Saturday group, like Saturday midday here on the West Coast, like that ends up sometimes being a pretty big group, and then it actually does make sense to try and stick with as many riders as you can to get a better time on that second climb.
There's no TT bikes though, so you'd have to go on a Tron or
Well,
something.
yeah, Pinarello, whatever. Yeah.
I'm a little tempted. I guess I'd have to math it out, but I feel like if you just did gravel the whole way, like I know you're gonna give up points on the pavement, but you'll catch the group by the time you get back to the start of the gravel back up again. And like if you beat everybody because you're on a gravel bike on that second time up and it's 1.5 per place, like you know what I mean? Like it's 3 points per place versus only 2 points per place on that second one,
Mhm.
and you're gonna be better on the first one. Like, you only
Interesting.
need to really move up like 3 places by being on gravel the whole one to make up like 4 places,
Elsewhere,
lost
yeah.
on the other one, right? So
Yeah. I think it all depends on whether you think there's still going to be a group over the top of
Yeah.
the second climb or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, was there? I'm guessing no.
Not
Not in my case. I
any.
don't know in front.
No, I mean, so Chris was with one other rider at the top of the second climb.
Yeah. So I think make your decision within a couple minutes of the start, just based on how many you see in the pens. Like if it's a relatively big group, I could see starting on a Tron and going hard, or trying the all gravel approach. But if it's relatively small groups, just optimize per climb.
Yeah, I think the key thing is that the lead in is super short and a lot of it is downhill. So if you do choose to go for that heavier bike, it's going to be really hard for you to be not in the group for that first gravel climb. But then you've still got 2 more climbs.
All right,
And
so Steve is advocating for a mountain bike, full mountain bike.
That's what I heard.
I did wonder that, like the route I went, like would actually the mountain bike have been the quicker bike up the climb?
Probably
Bearing
not.
yeah. So I think
can't
the
see
gravel
that.
bike is quicker than the mountain bike up there. But
Good. All right. Quick spin through the rest of the herd races. I think we'll do HBR. Looks like
I saw TikTok
TikTok.
this week. Yeah.
TikTok is the
Yeah,
classic
It is
it's
TikTok.
end of the month.
24K scratch race. Sit in, win at the sprint. Bullseye, Craig. What do we got? Oh no, usually Bullseye's
So
last. Whatever.
Bullseye, we're gonna try Castle Crit.
Oh,
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 nice.
fun.
So
I might do that. That's
I was all over the place on how many laps, so we'll try 6 laps and see how it goes.
And which banner is the lap banner on Castle Crit?
I don't even know. I haven't
Okay.
ridden this route.
I can't remember if it's the sprint banner or the KOM banner. Like, don't you go through both on this
I
route?
think it's the KOM banner.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Interesting.
KOM banner is where the lap ends. Yeah.
All right, I think I have to decide whether I can do like 4 events, 5 events in a week, because CRL, these things. I may have an outdoor event next weekend, but I really do want to race on Castle Crit.
Herd Club Challenge is coming. I mean, you're going to be doing them all then.
Yeah.
Isn't this into the Herd Club Challenge?
Thought it was next week.
October
October.
1st, I think it starts.
Well, so
Yeah,
but
so
But that
this is
Bullseye
so
will be
Bullseye
across
is
on
the
October
second.
1st.
Yeah.
yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Well,
Climbers Gambit. Chris isn't here. I'm seeing Epic and Radio Tower.
yeah, so combined time on the Epic forward, which is the one that is the relatively shallower one with the rollers at the top, plus the actual radio tower time, since that is now a segment. And
And-
that's going to be almost a like one consistent effort unless you cheat and just sit at the top.
I
Is
think
there a
it-
gap?
I think
Is
it's a
there a
case of
gap
you'll do a
between?
bike
There's a
change.
small gap.
Is there? Okay.
I
Which is
think, yeah,
it's a
you're
critical
right,
point
Steve.
to do a bike change because the Tron is the quickest bike, and some people might go aero even on Epic because
Mhm.
it's not that pitchy.
And then Athos and the
yeah.
lightest wheels you've got up the radio tower, yeah.
So if I happen to forget how to do a bike change, have to like go to Zwift Insider on my phone to look at what the fastest bike is to go up a hill, anything that just takes a bit longer, you know, before I have to do that segment. I don't think that's cheating, but
As long as you're
Only
actually
yourself.
doing something, yeah. It's interesting because like the relative amount of time that you could gain up the radio tower if you've actually gone, like how close you get to your actual maximum on the epic is going to like determine how quick you can go up radio tower, and there's a lot of time to be gained or lost on radio tower, so that's a fun one.
Well, because Epic, you've done your 20-minute, right?
Mhm.
And are you gonna go your 20-minute FTP? No, you can't go that.
I think it is you just ride threshold and then you do
Or
whatever
above
you've got
threshold.
left for the
I
don't-
think you have to go above threshold for radio tower.
I
If
don't
that's
think-
the steep spot, that's where you go harder.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I mean. So I
Yeah.
think you do epic at threshold,
Yeah.
and then you try and pace out what you've got left for radio tower.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really new experience for at least for the people who've been riding Climbers Gambit for a while, because we all have the history of like, okay, we know if it's the Volcano or if it's Epic or if it's the Zwift KOM, whatever it is, we kind of know our best and what we're shooting for. But I've never raced the radio tower. I've ridden it. I've done it on a ride, but I've never gone for it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll blow up. Yeah.
Yep. That's my Sunday.
Probably.
Yeah.
And I also think this time the Climbers Gambit HSRL combo will be difficult. If it was the other way around, it would be more perfect.
Oh, if you want
Yeah,
to
that's
double
a-
it up.
That's a
Oof.
rough double.
Oof. No.
Doing
And
like
we're-
45 minutes of 40 to 45. Yeah, it's 40-ish minutes of like real hard effort,
Okay,
and then
maybe
coming
it's still
back and
doable.
doing like VO2
Doing
intervals.
any other race after that Climbers Gambit is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I had to look, like none of us seem to have a segment time on radio tower.
Nope.
I don't for sure. And
I
in
can't-
terms of
I
like
can't-
comparisons, like I
I
barely
can't.
recognize what's that stuff?
I was about to say I can't even remember the last time I went up radio tower.
Was it on purpose even? Like I feel like most of the times you go up a radio tower, it's because you have to do it in an event or you
Yeah.
accidentally made the turn.
Probably
Yeah.
in the event.
But I mean, I don't know like these people, but like the top herd time is a 5:34 at 4.6. So that's not
Ooh,
like 5:34 at 4.6 isn't crazy numbers.
It's
but that
It's
doesn't,
fast,
5
but you
minutes
can-
doesn't sound right. That sounds like it's a partially coffee break or something.
Maybe. I don't know. The next fastest is 6:06 at 4.2, and then
yeah, it's
Maybe.
not it's not super long actually.
It always feels longer than that,
It
I guess.
does.
yeah, it's not that long. So, in any event, just in terms of what Plaza, the population average is a 753 at 3.3, but of course that's gonna have a lot of people like who are dying at the end of some long ride or not really racing or whatever else. So you're looking at something between 5 and 8 or 9 minutes maybe for the slower people. Like you can get it done, it seems like an 8 at a 3.1. So
It'll just seem like 20 minutes. That's all.
yeah.
Or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could it's 10 minutes at 2.3. So it's not a long climb.
Yeah.
The fastest current one on Zwift Power is a 354 at 7.2. So there you go. If you want to know the fastest possible route up.
7.2. That's insane.
Yeah, dude was 50 kilos, so you know. Anyway. So that's the Climbers Gambit Stampede this week. We are kind of in our bonus week still. We are going to do Harrogate UCI for 1 lap. Still your TT bike. And it's a little lumpier than the average, but you know, it's a pretty fun TT route, I think. Like there's lots of stuff to try and focus on for the bumpy bits. That's just the bonus route. Before we get into, we will be starting our HCC stuff next week. I think that's all the herd races. Oh, mountain goats. Do we have any idea? I don't. Oh, hold on. Let's see.
Oh, I
No.
think there was some discussion.
There was some discussion, but I think that's
Oh.
for starting next week.
Yeah, that's for starting next week. Yeah.
Okay.
It's happening. Mountain
Just
goats.
double check.
Keep an eye out.
Yeah, it's because we're bringing it back for HCC to like, you know,
Yeah.
scoring a league, all that jazz. The routes only looked medium mean that Matt posted, I gotta admit.
But yeah, for HCC, that won't be this week. That will be starting next week.
Yep.
For mountain goats.
Well,
in
it starts.
particular.
I think the first event in HCC is Bullseye on Wednesday this week.
Oh wow. What amazing timing. We lost
John Keenan
we
just
lost
magically
John.
transformed into Chris.
Yeah.
That was insane.
That's one thing I have going for me is my sense of timing, my incredible good looks, my sense of humor, and my humility.
You're that one thing.
Other than that,
And of
I'm
course,
a
your
desert.
knowledge of whiskey. The big plus in my books.
Oh yeah, actually, we talked about Climbers Gambit already, but do you want to plug
cool.
the whiskey pairing?
Did you not already talk about that?
I didn't. I forgot about it.
Okay. Yeah, this was a fun one. So we're going up Radio Tower, and I was trying to figure out a way to tie that all in. So there's a fun whiskey here out of the US called Blackened, and it's the typical, 4-year-old minimum, some bourbon, some rye blended together. But then their hook is it's a partnership with the band Metallica. Some of you may know them. So after they fill the casks, then they aggressively pump Metallica playlists at the whiskey casks. And the thinking is that the vibrations of the sound, change the physical nature of the staves, opening up the wood for the whiskey to penetrate deeper, thanks to those vibrations. So yeah, all that whiskey grows up listening to different Metallica playlists.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Nice. I thought you'd have gone. I've hit Google and don't know how to say this, but something like Brookladdick X4, which is the world's strongest whiskey, supposedly at 92% ABV, to celebrate the Zwift's steepest climb.
Oh goodness, yeah. No, I didn't go the ABV route on that one. Shoot, I didn't put up a post last week, but I was going to do something like, some double charred cask, probably something out of Scotland for the volcano, and then the maritime influence, but I didn't get a chance to do that. So apologies retroactively, but
yeah, I like
one.
Blackened for this because it's what your vision will do as you hit the top of the radio tower.
Everything fades to black. Enter Sandman.
Seriously, once you get to the top, nothing else matters. All right, I think that brings us to the news. Steve, you want to lead into the news?
Yeah, let's start with we've got a few things, but let's start with Zwift Racing Score. That seems to be the most applicable thing. So that's going on all events, as I understand.
All public events. So I don't know what the definition of a public event is, but I think that's like anything the public can join.
Yeah, so there's also conflicting earlier statement by James Bailey of Zwift that it was not functional for points races of any kind.
That was my question.
So I think there's a bit of a I'm not sure how many caveats were missing from that statement of all public events.
I wonder if the distinction is between the categorization to start it and whether it
Mm.
counts to your actual score. Cause I can see they're gonna have problems like using a result in a points-based race to change your Zwift Racing Score, but they could still say
Categorize
here
you.
are the
Yeah,
thresholds you need to be inside the Zwift Racing Score to enter any race.
That's
that's
an
fair.
excellent point.
Yeah.
So that might be the distinction and the confusion there.
Well, I mean, ZwiftRacing.app can use points races towards your Velo
So-
score, correct?
Yes,
They can,
it pulls
but-
the scores from Zwift Power, and Zwift refuses to do so. And
Yeah, I was
it
gonna
also will
say
not
this-
allow us to configure points races in game in order to have in-game scoring. So add all those things
Okay.
all together, and
Yes. One can draw a dotted line to where we're going.
yep.
I also
Hopefully,
wonder.
it's to in-game point scoring.
And the elimination of Zwift Power.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, like, how many people, like, have you guys been doing any of the ZRS races? Like, I have not done
Not
any
a
of them,
s-
mostly because every time I
nope.
look, when it's like a time I might be able to do one that's not some other event I'm doing, there's like 1 in 3 hours and there's one other person
So I've
signed up for it.
done one of the HBRs, and then James and I did the tiny races last weekend, and actually pretty good. Like James and I were, I think the tiny races were 300 to 450, or we were lower in the group, and yeah, kind of. I was, or was it 300 to 400? I can't remember. Anyway, I just about made the front group. James was at the top of the split, which is where he expected to be. The groups felt quite compact. There weren't the odd sort of flyers. There weren't odd people just hanging off the back. It felt like a bunch of reasonably matched people. And what was nice in one of them was we did New York route, and somebody attacked and went off the front at tempo, and nobody wanted to chase behind. So actually a breakaway happened and this person went and won because they went, right, I'm just going to get off the front and do tempo, and nobody wanted to work behind. So it felt like really cool racing. So.
I did one in July, kind of when they first started the like test events. And it was actually really kind of eye-opening for me because I think I was actually fairly near top of category in terms of ranking, but that was specifically because of like 30-second power. The 10-minute power was quite or like FTP longer effort type stuff was quite a bit behind the rest of the group, and it did balance the different types of efforts, right? So it was on a long flat route, the kind of thing that if you've got the, near top of group 30-second power, you should probably be fine. I think it was RGV, so finishing on the intestines and then a sprint. But in a C race, I just chill in that group for the whole time and sprint at the end. That was not how that race went. It was, I was at or near threshold for the majority of that race in that group with a lot of people who weren't at threshold. And so I may have better punch than them, but they wore me down. And it wasn't like really interesting finish, even on a relatively flat route. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to this being more widely incorporated, even though it like personally ends up maybe making it harder for me. But I think that's a good thing.
Yeah,
some of that will
and
be-
I mean, it's almost targeting me, really.
Mm-hmm.
Really. But no, I think it should be good because I mean, remembering back to 2020, the first time I bumped up to B, my first points race in B, I'm in the top group and finished top 5 in a race that New Heights is in. Or it might have been 7th, but top 10 in a big race that we had back then. So yeah, it was yeah, there's something in the categorization that definitely I'm really good in C, and then I can immediately be really good in B. And a
But
lot of
maybe
people.
not anymore. Yeah.
What's that?
But maybe not anymore with C versus B versus now
Yeah.
with the racing score stuff. It's like you're going to be higher categorized than you would otherwise be.
Yeah. And actually, the biggest thing I think this opens us up for, and I hope it's part of the Zwift's plan, is the bands moving around in different races as
Yes.
opposed to being solid all the time. Because there's so much of you just get stuck at the top of a category because that's the power you need to put out to be competitive in that
Yes.
race, and you just never do anything else.
So often you see, and I don't judge anyone for this, but people who don't do things like Climber's Gambit, which push out the specific edges of your power curve, people who don't do things like that, when they get bumped up, get really sad and then do the best power of their life, like one race later, because they're now actually being challenged to go to their actual limit, which oftentimes is 0.2, 0.3 higher than they've ever done for a 20-minute effort.
Yeah, and
I've
that's
seen it
exactly what happened to me the first time I jumped to B. Yeah.
Do we like diving into like wild, who knows speculation, but do we think this is coming to ZRL this season? Or probably not till like not obviously like these 6 races, but like not until like fall
fair.
of 2025.
Maybe. It's actually part of why I thought they did a really short first season.
Well, they've been the
Interesting.
6-week season has been pretty standard now, I think, for a couple of years, but
Have they been? Okay.
Yeah.
But I suspect they won't be able to because I don't know what they're going to do with teams and stuff like that, but all these teams are all formed around these pace groups and everything else. So I don't think they're going to be able to put it in the middle of this season. I mean, maybe I guess
I'm
we'll
going to
have to see what people's
say,
rankings would be.
who cares? Just do it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I would like it. I mean, I think
I would say it preference wise, just do it and relax the rules on how many like riders you could have in your team. That's always been kind of the like if you're changing the category structure mid-season, like that becomes a problem. But
well, with results-based scoring, as opposed to sort of fitness-based pace groups, it seems to me you don't need to like have a team like a guy in your team, like if his score goes over X number, doesn't need to get kicked out. Like your team can be like, listen, if you've got your 5 races or whatever number you do to have your like qualifying thing in, it's like your max team score for all your racers needs to be within let's say for your 6 racers who show up on race day needs to be 3,600, for example, like
Yeah.
not
This is
599.
where
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
doable.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you watch wheelchair basketball, but like they have a similar point system. So based on how much movement you have above the spine. So us as able-bodied people will be a 4, and then people who are kind of really limited are a 1. And actually, it's those people who are lower scores are super valuable in the team because you can have sort of more in the squad and more people. So yeah, you'd wonder if you could that kind of like your team can be ranked 1,500 points. And yeah, sure, you could have 3 people who are at 500, but actually you can't have anyone else in the team then. And if you get the point structure right, like those 3 that could win the race, but if you've got like 6 3 or 5 300s that do sort of middling and they beat that, like then like that team composition becomes really interesting, doesn't it? So.
That is really interesting, and I
maybe
hadn't thought of
you
it
put
that
some
way.
like absolute limits so you don't have one guy like just TTing off the front or something, but you know what I mean? I think there's more room for that stuff without, you know what I mean? There's room to be more flexible in the team structure that allows these teams to bring people in. You don't have to worry about people upgrading, getting kicked off in the middle of the season so much and things like that you can like really...
Yeah, because if there is a hard limit, doing well in this series actually means that you can't ride the series anymore. Like at some point, because you're like
And that's
will
where,
do well
like,
enough that you upgrade.
Yeah, that's where a 6-week series is good, because then, okay, you're gone for the next 6-week series or whatever. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Or just be draconian about it, and if somebody gets promoted out, then they get promoted out, and just relax some of the number of rider,
Yeah.
and both the number of rider and number of team restrictions that
Yeah.
that WTRL put on. I didn't like those restrictions, not just because I was riding for 5 or 6 teams per season at that point, but yeah.
But it lets them like right now, like we have these fictions of like, A1, A2, maybe A3,
Yeah.
B1, 2, 3, where everybody's within this B, but you can still get a guy in B who's like wrecking the race, or like guys who get dropped or whatever. But now you can say, all right, well, listen, this one is the 1,500 point race. This is the
Yeah.
1,200 point
I
race.
love this idea,
This is
Brent.
the like 900 point
Yeah.
race. And so instead of like being B3, it's like, sure, you can bring your one gunner who's like a 600 point guy, but the rest of us are 300 point guys. And there should be within that a race that you can all have to fit in. And I get like the
Yeah,
point scoring thing they'll have to work out, but like it seems like you can really like, and then like you can hang out with your buddies and not have to worry about getting kicked out and moved up so much. I
This
think
sounds
there's
like a fun ladder wrinkle
Yeah.
too.
yeah.
This was definitely the problem with Zwift, like ZRL, sorry, was you would have like I was racing as a decent C, and there were people who were right at the top of Cs who will just win the race. And in the top leagues, there's a lot of them. In the middle leagues, there's still quite a few of them. So you drop down the leagues and you're still not winning the race because those people just go off in front. And this is where, as you say, this tweak, like if you got the points right, you might find there's one or two, but you'd really limit, like if you have your one person who can go off the front and win, actually you're going to have 4 people who are at the back who are going to make quite a nice bunch at the back with some other people who are lower ranked. So yeah, it's cool. And actually, like, I love the ladder idea as well. Like, imagine like you could have 1,500 racing points in your ladder team, or 2,000 race points in your ladder team.
know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, since I'm captain of a ladder team, I think they do it. It's not perfect, but they have that leeway. For instance, there's that 3-rank spread, but if somebody gets an outlier, they can technically still race with you. You can't just go over the 3-rank limit. So you have to be careful, but that outlier can still race for you.
I think this would make the ladder racing more exciting for the people in the middle. So if you think like we've raced teams in a ladder who've got like 5 gold riders and we've got 1 gold rider, so we're both gold teams, and the 4 of us who are silver are sat in there and gone, this can be really tough. Often we've lost that race. Like all 5 riders have beaten all 5 of our riders because we've only just got somebody gold. But if that went down to ranking points, and actually they've got more expensive gold riders, they might be able to have 3 of them, but then they had to bring in 3 silvers or 3 bronzes to balance it out. It brings the packs into more balance, doesn't it? Which is I think, yeah,
you're gonna make my life more difficult than it is already. It's
presumably if it's all automated, it's not too bad. But yeah, that scenario like Steve's talking about, it's going to be up to those sort of the middle guys to attack, right? They're gonna have to use like team attack tactics to like drop their weaker guys, even though they know they're not going to be able to keep the pace with the faster guys. Like, yeah. Anyway,
the thing I would worry about in that is you set your limit, and if your team goes a little above, you end up biasing toward, well, we want our better rider to ride, and you end up not being able to ride your kind of lower level riders as much.
I think this is where you have to get the points right, don't you? So yeah. Let's say you ended up with kind of, I could see a situation where you end up deliberately selecting 3 riders instead of 5, going, well, we can get 1, 2, 3, and you need to almost make it like you can't win a 5v4 taking all 4 top slots.
Yeah,
or something
the calculus then becomes
that's the only way you could win it, or something would be.
The calculus becomes, can our 600 rated rider do as well as 2 300s, or whatever,
Yeah.
for what the
And that's
whatever
right.
the rating
That's a
is.
really good way of looking at it. So if you could get the point scoring such that a 600 is worth, like, a 2 300s are effectively worth 601. Like,
Right.
that's so they are just worth slightly more. So if you can get 2 average riders in above 1 good
And
rider.
and the it's actually a lot, like the numbers are a lot tighter. So if it's like, is our 500 actually worth, more than 2 400s, or a 400 and a 300, whatever it is, like that ends up being more. Yeah, that's interesting.
I think we'll find out what the spreads look like as well. And that's what I noted with James. I think it was 300 to 450 was the bracket we were in. And actually that didn't feel like it's quite a big numerical spread, but it didn't feel like a huge field spread. So it'd be interesting to see, like, just how much, if I'm racing, if I'm 300 and I race a 400, should I never expect to beat them, or I can beat them on the right course? Or actually, if I race really well tactically, like sit on their wheel the whole time, I might beat them at the end of the race. Like that's the stuff we're going to find out with the racing score.
Well, and I think the other thing it opens up that I think will be a boon for the community racing stuff, like the stuff that we put on and FR and all the rest, is if they let us custom set the thresholds,
Yeah.
right? Because one of the challenges now is in every single race of every type, if you're like a top B or a top C or top D, A is a little different, but you're always at the top, right? Every race group is the same, everything's the same, top is the top. But if one with the exception of a couple little custom guys that are out there, and maybe Ladder because it uses Zwift Racing, which isn't even really, it's like kind of its own thing because they don't even really use Zwift Power or anything else. But if every community racing kind of set its own little custom thresholds, then you can kind of shop around a bit and be like, okay, I'm a top in this one or whatever in this one, and that'll always like give you an opportunity. It gives more incentive for those custom community race organizers to come up with different thresholds to like see who it attracts and what brings people in and what's fun and everything else.
The custom thresholds we've been doing for HBR haven't seemed to be a big deal as far as Zwift is concerned. So I think there's definitely the ability to do that, even if there's not the ability for us to, as race organizers, to go in and change it ourselves every week. I don't think there's much of an issue, because there was the issue when we were doing power bands with category enforcement, where your custom bands couldn't go up.
Category enforced.
So you could do custom with category enforcement, but your custom limits your custom category couldn't cross an
ABC,
a Zwift category. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you couldn't cross the A, B, C, D categories, which kind of defeats the purpose as far as what we want to do with making different limits. But that doesn't seem to be the case with ZRS.
So couple extra things to mention on this. They have said that they're going to start rolling out racing content shortly by October 7th for all Zwift Run and community generated events. That's all public events. But the idea really does seem to be, by October 7th, this is the way we're doing things. They've reset all the scores based on your seed score, and we're just gonna go from there. They do mention that Zwift Racing League will continue with the existing power categories, including the remainder of round 1, but they don't actually mention what happens after that. So it does seem like there's the potential of this changing after round 1.
Or more likely, they haven't actually thought about it yet.
Yeah.
It does possibly make it easier for WTRL, right? So they can look at your roster, and however they decide to do it, they either go your top 6 riders or your average 6-rider roster, and they can look at that and go, right, your average rider is 300. We're going to put you in a league that encapsulates this. And actually, this team's average rider is a 400, so they need to go into this league. And so it might make that, because they did fudge the leagues around after the first time trial in this season, didn't they? To try and get better matching between the teams. So it may help them do that before the season starts, which would be cool. Anything that encourages close racing is good, right?
I think that's
I wonder
plenty of
what
ZRS talk. Oh, go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, and seeing it set public, that's probably not going to firstly include ladder racing because they're technically not public, they're restricted. So wonder what that will do for me, because I do basically ladder racing and the occasional climbers Gambit. And I think both things might not be on the first set of CRS.
But remember,
races.
ZRS takes any effort. So this is, I think it's really important for us to be clear for people listening as well. Your Zwift Racing Score is determined on anything you do in Zwift. It can be a workout, it can be a race, it could be Climbers Gambit, it could be a ladder event, because they're looking at power outputs that you put in. It also does do some kind of positional adjustments as well. So you'll still have a valid ZRS score by doing those events, as Steph mentioned. Just those two events won't be scored using the ZRS system.
Yeah, we'll still get a seat score based on my efforts, but not like what happens with Velo score. If I do better than a better rider, I will get extra points. That won't happen when I do a ladder race for my ZRS, but still for my Velo rank, of course. But yeah, it is what it is.
So a couple of things that might be interesting on this going forward. I would actually, so they're basing this based on the critical power curve for your 30-second and 10-minute. I mean, that's what it says. It's your CP30 and your CP600. So they're calculating your critical power curve for your last 90 days. And
I don't know if they're doing a curve.
That's what critical power, like that. That's what that refers to. But like,
I know.
So it's possible that they're not doing that. But point being, your 600 does actually vary in that time frame. Your 30 doesn't that much, and it would actually be really interesting if longer term they allow the 30 part of that to be from a much longer time frame, so that it's like, well, no, you actually just do have a good sprint. Like, you just haven't done a good sprint recently.
Yep.
Like, you haven't done a 30-second effort. Versus, I mean, in races, like, you're gonna do something that gets you close to where you're at for your 10 minutes. Like, even if it's only 10%, like, I haven't done a 30-second effort that's anywhere within 10% of my max in 9 months, something like that. Like, because that really requires you to go out and do a max effort.
Did you not do the Sugar Cookies ZRL?
I did, but I was, or no, I didn't actually. I didn't.
Yeah, because that definitely was some repeat set.
Yeah. But the other interesting point on this is, as Craig mentioned, the matchmaking stuff is like, that is game standard. Like, that's a thing that you just expect in all other games, where you can just, you don't join a pen, you join a race. And then you get auto sorted based on how many people signed up and how many tiers they want to break you into based on who signed up. And they do that like last minute based on who signed up and what that distribution looks like. And that is something that I think is really exciting, because then it's not just this is the cutoff for these different bands. It's just you sign up for the race and then you end up racing people that should make a good, interesting race. And sometimes you're at the top, sometimes you're at the bottom, sometimes you're in the middle, and we'll see, we'll sort it out later.
Do we think
And
so?
that's
If I
where
missed that, is that going to happen?
we don't know.
We think it should.
Yeah. And so part of the problem is, I mean, your best races, the most fun I've had have not been when I was the overdog racer and winning, honestly. Then you get mad when,
You
the
don't
other
win.
guy that's at
Yeah.
the top beats you. The most fun I've had is when I'm at, like the 80th percentile and, I might be able to get up, I might be able to sneak onto a podium.
Yeah,
Like,
when you
that's
get
when I've had
that
the
top
most fun.
5, when you're actually like, you maybe should finish 15th, like
Yeah.
that's super fun.
Or, I finished 20th when, I probably should have been 40th. Like, those are the races I've had the most fun. But the problem is it's all when I'm in, probably the top half. And, it's definitely very few of the races where I've been, in the bottom 20% have I really had a lot of fun.
And that
This is where you're tying the Zwift Racing prediction thing, though, isn't it? I imagine you had that pre-sort, and they said, right, you've been sorted into a pen of 15 people. We expect you to finish 13th. And then suddenly I'm like, well, fuck you, Zwift. I'm going for 10th. I can.
Yeah, but that like the description that Craig just gave is the motivation for people to sandbag, right? Like,
yeah,
it's that like I have more fun when I am in that top half, and I have a hard time when I'm in that bottom half. But if they figure out a way of, you don't get to choose that part, you just sign up for a race.
Yeah.
And you maybe do it because there's 100 other riders signed up for this race. So whatever the like cutoffs are, you're gonna have enough people to race against to make it interesting for you. And sometimes you'll end up in that top half where it's going to be really fun for you. And sometimes you're going to be in that bottom half and it's like, well, that wasn't what I wanted, but like, I didn't know ahead of time where I was in that cutoff, and I raced and we figured something out.
Stuff happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. So in some bits, that's really hard because you can't do a pre-race scout on who am I racing against? Should I try to stay in the group or not? It's like you just have to try. So yeah, some of it makes things a little tougher, but it makes it fun too.
Yeah, that unpredictability of where you end up might need. Yeah, then you avoid the quote unquote sandbaggers. Will be less predominant, because those sandbaggers in, for instance, category D or whatever, can end up in a batch where they are at the bottom.
Yep. The guys, and like me right at the moment at the top of category C, and maybe I end up at the bottom, or say the 60th percentile. But it's hard to define that, where you can always, if you can go further above your threshold and recover faster, you're always going to race above what your threshold predicts, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Personally, I don't always feel that, because when I blow up, it is epic, and I end up losing. Like, then a group comes up to me and I can't hold on to that group, and then another group comes up to me and I can't hold on to that group, and it's just like a horror show of like, wow, you really tried too hard, like earlier in this race.
So I've definitely done that, but when I've done that, it's been epic. Normally when I blow up and lose a group, I can recover fast enough to catch on to the next group. But yeah, that's very much, I'm really good at recovery. I'm really good at going all out and then a couple of minutes later going all out again. And
Cool. Enough ZRS talk.
yes, sorry.
And so we have one
Adios.
quick item of news, which is Zwift Cog 2. It's out. DC Rainmakers had a look at it. I think the thing I wanted to note is it fits on any Shimano HG50 hub. So the
Okay.
question I had is actually, can I buy a? I'm still confused about this Zwift Ready thing. I've looked on the internet. I don't understand it. I think it means like it ships with plays or something as well, which is really confusing. Basically, I want to know, can my current trainer takes a Shimano cog? Can I put the Zwift Cog 2 on? I've got Zwift plays and use it for virtual shifting. I can't find the answer to that, but
You don't need the cog for virtual shifting at all.
Yeah.
Like you just can put it in one gear on your cassette and
Yeah, that's what I do.
virtual shift.
As long as your trainer will do it.
Yes.
But
and that's
trainer
what
you
I
don't live
don't
in Canada.
understand. How do I find out if my trainer does it?
What is it?
right.
I mean, right now it's just Zwift Core 1, Zwift Hub, and Kicker V6, and I think the Elite that are T just got added.
Your core does it, yeah.
I think those are it for now.
I know
We'll have to
mine
see.
won't, and it's frustrating because it's like I got a kicker that's one generation old.
You got
You
a
have the
V5?
V5.
Yeah.
I also have the V5. I do have a core as well though, so I could go that way.
Yeah, core should do it. You just upgrade the firmware. That's what I did.
So anyway, interesting. It's out. It does things. It looks quite nifty. I must admit, it looks quite nifty. And
I'm
if I had a trainer that worked with one, I would be tempted to go to the single speed setup we were discussing a couple of weeks ago. And the last thing, which I think leads us on to our round the horn, or my suggested round the horn topic, but the Verge.
So before we get to that, I do want to point out that there's a community event that was designed for Brent to fail. So Rhino Racing has a virtual Everest challenge. So I'm really looking forward to hearing Brent having gone up the Alp 3 times and said, I don't want to do 5 more of this. Fuck you.
I was only trying to do a half, but I didn't even make it.
Yeah.
So a full one sounds like just epic torture.
It's not anytime soon, but like this is the way that this works out is we start the peer pressure on Brent early. So we've got a month to really work on Brent to get on the group ride on November 2nd to just like finally do his, let's call it half Everest.
I think we start with hashtag Brent for base camp, and we kind of build him there, don't we? Like, as soon as he's agreed to ride base camp, it's.
We do. There's like a garbage pail kid in here somewhere, like base camp Brent. He's bleeding from the face. Can we AI that shit? Like, let's.
I can do that.
Okay, perfect. You're on it.
You're all terrible friends.
Oh dear.
And now I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. It'll be in the herd store in about 2 weeks.
So our final round the horn, or final news into round the horn was The Verge got a hold of Meta's new Orion prototype AR glasses, which is really techy and not what we normally talk about. But basically, these are solving the problem of kind of wearable tech at the moment. If you have glasses where you can see the outside really well, the screens are really shit. And if you have the Meta Quest where you can't see the outside, it fits over your face and it kind of shows you the outside through cameras, you're looking at screens the whole time. That's like giving people headaches, and also I imagine really sweaty if you were to do something like Zwift on it. So what this has opened up is the possibility of having actually decent augmented reality. So could you Zwift with glasses on, you'd be able to look around. You, instead of having a screen, you look at Sean has just gone on and put on his Meta Quest by the looks of it. and looks ridiculous. But yeah, would we consider AR in Zwift? Like, what do we think?
I need like two of those little glasses attached fans on either side.
Honestly, I don't think it adds enough to bother. Like really, unless you're going into a lot more sensors, a lot more things that a lot more complexity in Zwift. I don't think that it's worth the squeeze. And sometimes, the squeeze is, I've got these things on my face and it's heavy and it takes power and it's more complex.
The point that Steve is making is that this new version is just a pair of glasses. You do that outside every time you ride, right? Like you throw glasses on and you ride.
Yeah. But it's still complexity, and if I'm not getting anything else out of it, why?
So this is I know that Chris is also someone who there are different use cases that in which AI or VR works.
Yeah.
One of which, and the reason that I have this is for virtual car racing.
Yep.
So, which is a really amazing version of this because you end up getting a lot more information about where you are in the group. Are you in the draft? Are you able to? But your point about adding sensors, like being able to say, am I sitting up? Am I actually have to get down into a tuck to ride in an aero position on Zwift would be
it would change
amazing.
A lot. That's for
it
sure.
would change a lot.
Yeah. Although really, I'm like, does that make Zwift better or worse? Because, when I broke my shoulder, I spent 6 weeks Zwifting like this.
And then you don't ride with the glasses on.
Yeah. I was sat up straight, bolt upright, right? So if I can't get into an aero tuck, I couldn't actually race really at that point.
The point is you're really getting at immersion, which I think is something that you don't get in Zwift really. You're always watching from third person view.
That's another thing I want to talk about is POVs, but sorry to interrupt, Sean. Keep going.
No, go for it.
Yeah, so I went to first person for something recent. Made me think of exactly what you're saying. Like the way we're riding is not indicative of how we're riding out on the road. And it was jarring the change in the field of view going from that default third person wide perspective to first person. It was almost painful. With steering on it too, you expect a little bit of dynamic head wobble, kind of what you were talking about, Sean, with VR in all these racing apps where, as your head moves, your field of vision will shift a little bit and it feels more natural. Zwift, you're 100%, 90 degrees at all times, and you just kind of rotate across the horizon. It was different. I'm glad I changed it up a little bit, but it's just a huge shift versus IRL, I guess. Which is no shock. So this is not a hot take.
I think for me, you'd have to, if it became reality, and you would have to change some things about the game to make that shifting vision a useful thing, like Greg says. So at the moment, I think they've kind of missed a bit of a trick with steering. And I know we were complaining on one of the chats recently about people steering all over the road. I think that's really cool. Actually, that is what you would do in a bike race, is you would go over the road to a certain side and say, hey, you're going to follow me over here, right? You follow me, I'm going to go over to the other side of the road. And actually, those roads are pretty narrow. I think it's 12 tracks. It's slot racing is it's 12 tracks. You're probably still getting the draft in like 3 or 4 of those tracks, even if somebody's like way over on the left. If you made the road wider, you didn't see the people coming the other way in races, like then suddenly there's the potential, and you close down the field of view, there's the potential for somebody to be kind of what would you do in a bike race? You look over your shoulder to see where your opponent is, and that becomes like an immersive thing. It becomes a useful thing that sort of really changes it up. I think, like Chris says, you've got to be careful with these things that it doesn't then further remove you. Like I've been the first to like bag on RGT that like it's the avatar motion, and a lot of these other platforms, the avatar motion is very jarring as you go around corners, and it makes me feel separate from the game. So I think anything that kind of makes you feel more separate is bad. So it's interesting to hear what you say about that first person view, Chris.
But I would welcome if something like this reflected your actual position on the bike in game. Because yeah, Craig, you could still Zwift with a broken shoulder, but yeah, you're not going to be able to super tuck because you wouldn't be able to super tuck in that beautiful looking new pain cave, by the way.
Thank you. I'm
That's
very
gorgeous.
It's very much a work in progress, but no, it's I'm happy
Wow.
with it's a weird shaped room that is basically only suited for an office and a pain cave together.
Wow. That's great. But yeah, I welcome what we do on the bike being more reflected in game.
Yeah.
And the technology is like it's always improving, and I think it'll always, as long as there's some motivation for people to want. I mean, the immersion discussion that we've kind of been having a little bit, like Craig, you're 100% right. There are people who like do Zwift who don't want any more immersion. I just want to like pedal hard on my bike and watch the pretty pictures go by. I don't want to have to worry about steering. I don't want to worry about the position on the bike and all this other stuff. And people like that, but there are people who are more into the immersion side of it. And as long as there's like a continued market for that, the same as like there's people who don't want to actually do car racing in a VR headset. They just want to like drive a sand buggy all over Horizon 5 and crash it and it's fine and they don't care. So that, you know, the more people that get into it, the more the market will like segment a bit. And so, you know, would I like to wear like a pair of VR glasses that are just a pair of glasses and do Zwift like that, and like it moves up and down with me as I'm racing stuff? Sure, I'd love all that stuff. Like I'd get a, if it's the price is right, I'd get a rise and all this good stuff. But some people don't want that. So you know, I think it's, as long as the technology improves and gets more affordable and stuff like that, I mean, it's just going to get
And
different types of experiences all the time.
I think
I
that
won't sorry,
if-
go ahead, Sean.
I think that if it really does become a pair of glasses rather than this, like
Puts on massive headset again.
a giant like thing that covers your face, and like you just like, even not doing any real physical effort, you start sweating in. Like you put on a pair of glasses, it is inevitable. Like if that is the way that you can get a screen in front of your eyes, it is inevitable that 5 years from now, Zwift has to implement it. Like it's inevitable.
Well, I think all games
yeah.
will be, right? Like you won't be using a phone.
And then it's
probably,
just a
right?
question of like, yeah, because it's like, is it doing a good enough job at presenting a good enough picture for a cheap enough price? And that's like really all we're getting to, is like, how quickly do we hit that threshold? But when that threshold is reached, like if Zwift isn't doing it, people are going to be upset. Because like one of the really amazing things about riding a bike is being able to like go look at interesting things, and they have built an interesting world of interesting things that like you ride by the Yeti and you don't even realize because you've just turned, but like being able to just turn your head and be like, wait, what was that thing? Like being able to just focus on the interesting things that are going on around you, even not even thinking about racing, just riding around Zwift would be so much more interesting if you can look where you want to look. So
And this is
Wait,
where the kind of it for me it ties into a bit of a pack dynamics question as well, because like similarly to car racing games, like what happens in car racing games is you can hit other cars. So actually being able to see like a line, there's a car there, I'm picking my line around a corner, suddenly becomes more like riding a bike outside, that kind of you'll pick lines and you'll look look around corners and go like, hey, there's somebody there, there's somebody moving slowly there. I don't want to ride sort of through them, so I'm going to ride a bit wider to avoid them. It's got the potential to change how you play the game quite
Yeah.
drastically. But at
I
the
don't know
moment,
if anybody's watched any of my BMX videos, but you know, we do dive in
We
front of each
have-
other quite often.
all the ones you've crashed in.
Well, you know, that's thankfully a very small subset. But yeah, I won't pretend that I haven't had bull sessions with BMX guys about what it would take to do a winter indoor simulation for pumping and jumping. And unfortunately, it's a lot. Like there's so much on where's your balance point, where's your force center, where's your like it's probably not feasible anytime in the near future, in the 5 years plus future.
But when it is,
It's gonna be
that
cool.
also unlocks downhill mountain bike.
Yep.
It
Well, it's the
unlocks
same. Yeah.
it's like it unlocks how you race a crit. There's lots of like types of racing that those dynamics actually unlock.
Actually, you're not wrong in that, yeah, BMX, we pump and jump, and then we pump a curved corner or
Yeah.
pump a paved corner. Yeah. But yeah, as far as throwing downhill and crit into there. But yes, but I think, yeah, no, it's possible. It's just not currently feasible.
At some point, the like reality will get too real though, right? Like it happens in video games too, where like at some point, like maybe some people want that level of simulation, but at some point it does get, those car racing ones are like, this isn't fun. I'm just crashing all the time because I'm actually not an F1 car driver and I'm actually terrible at this. So I do crash into people, or, I'm actually not a Navy SEAL sniper and I can't hit anyone with this gun. So it does,
Yeah.
these things, that's the beauty of these entertainment products. And I know Zwift is like fitness entertainment or however we're going to characterize this. So eventually, there'll be segments of the market. People want the full thing, like all that for, I don't know, $50,000.
And then you add levels of assist, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But I do think the other thing about the glasses thing is, from a business perspective, like a lot of the challenges of getting people into Zwift is like that tech hurdle or whatever, right? Where it's like, oh, does it work with my computer? Or do I got to get an Apple TV? And then I got to have a TV and it's got to be next to this. Does it work with my trainer? Blah, blah, blah. But if you you can fit Zwift on a phone, and the phone, I don't know, probably even the current version of Zwift would probably run on like a 5-year-old iPhone, basically. And so you could
Easily.
if you're selling like a Zwift ride type setup with like a 5-year-old iPhone running that broadcasts to a pair of glasses, and it's like you just buy this thing and you hit go and you're in Zwift and it's broadcasting to a pair of glasses. You don't need to worry about a monitor, a screen, frame rate, whatever, all that mumbo jumbo. Boy, does that sure change the entry level point, right?
As they say, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Still won't have in-game scoring at that point, though.
No, definitely not.
I think I would say that there are many other things from games that we want Zwift to take probably before augmented reality. I think the final thing is on workouts. I think I can actually see sort of screen on screen stuff. So I know a lot of people watch Netflix and films like that, but imagine you've got your glasses on and you've just got that ticking away with kind of what you're doing in the workout while you've got your, I don't know, 50-inch TV enjoying Lord of the Rings remake 12. What is happening? Rocky 28.
That's how many movies I need to watch while I'm doing the Everesting. Probably the full extended edition of Lord of the Rings and the full Hobbit.
So when I did the Festive 500 this past year, I did do the full Lord of the Rings, and it got me through, a good portion of that 500.
Good. All right. I think that's it for news.
Yeah, well, so okay, let's say 2 years from now they've got a good version of this that, like, let's call it 400 US dollars, that you get a decent enough screen on your eyes in a pair of glasses. Who gets it? Because I'm a yes.
Well, I would be a yes, but it'll be available in the US and Europe. In Canada, not very later.
I don't know.
I
I heard
get some
Zuckerberg hasn't been bitten by
WTRL
a bee
bootleg
before.
system that they've like sort of, I don't know, bribed some customs officer. Martin, I know you didn't actually do that. I'm just joking. Don't sue me. But I mean, yes, I would get it whenever the Canadian poor sister version shows up.
Yeah, I'm in on
Yeah.
this as well.
I don't know.
So what Craig's saying is he's 6 months behind the rest of us.
At least.
Greg has to sell a couple bikes first.
Well, Brent, you know where I live. I'm now 5 years behind everyone.
Yeah, there's no one there who will buy his bikes.
That's the real reason they can't ship to Canada, is because they'd have to get it to Fredericton, New Brunswick. Or no, you're closer to Moncton, I think.
I'm in Moncton, yeah.
Moncton. All right. I think on that note, we will say thank you to Sean Fogenberg. Thank you to Steph Etienne. Thank you to Craig Martin. Thank you to Chris Greenland. Thank you to Steve Pritchard. Thank you to John Keenan. Thank you to all of you listening at home. Thank you to everyone who's doing the herd races this weekend. Enjoy your races, everybody. Moo and good night.